Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health? Hi everyone, Dr. Adriana Popescu here with you today with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. And I'm really excited to have with me as my guest today, Nina Cruz. She is a certified conscious parent coach and social worker whose mission is to support parents in building healthy connections with their children. She does this through teaching them conscious parenting, where they heal their own childhood wounds so they can consciously raise empowered children. When a parent's inner world shifts, their outer world changes, transforming the parent-child dynamic from chaos to control to worth and connection. Parents who gain a new sense of awareness through inner transformation create a new blueprint for themselves and their children. And this is why one of Nina's greatest passions is to guide parents to do their own inner work so their children can be free to live out their authentic destinies. Certified as a conscious parenting coach, Nina integrates Eastern mindfulness with Western psychology in helping parents heal their ancestral legacies. Her expertise has allowed her to collaborate with experts around the globe. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you, Dr. Adriana, for having me.
Yeah, so happy to have you. And I would love to start, as I always do, with finding out a little bit about you. What brought you to doing this work?
Well, it kind of happened organically and divinely, I guess. I was always doing work, supporting people. I was in the helping industry, did social work, did health and fitness. And I always had this question of like, why do people, know what, but they're not doing it? So I was always intrigued and curious, and also in my own life. And then I became a mother, and my whole life kind of turned upside down. How I used to do life shifted. Now I had a baby, and I came to the work really out of feeling like I'd lost my way, feeling like I'd lost my inner knowing. And I was just looking outside for all the answers. And I came to conscious parenting to do the work and start to go within and start to navigate my life from the inside out. And, as we grow up as children, we're often orientating from the external environment. So I'd always been interested in doing work, and I was always doing personal development and developing myself. But it wasn't until I came to parenting that I, to the floor and said, I need some help. What I was doing, which was control-based, was not working. And my greatest teacher, both of my children, were showing me each day, reflecting to me that if you come at me with control and hierarchy and, this kind of energy, that we will disconnect from you. And, it's a beautiful ride journey with the ups, with the downs, with the chaos, with the calm. But I really came to find my children teaching me in every moment more about me. And the more I looked at myself, and instead of looking externally and blaming and being the victim and going, my child did this or whatever, I kept the practice of bringing it back to, how's that making me feel? And what is that about me? What's happening inside of me? And that's where I noticed the shifts began with my children, and I wasn't doing anything to them.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love that. Yeah, so let's even start from the beginning. When you say conscious parenting, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, well, consciousness is awareness. So it's bringing awareness to your parenting journey. And conscious parenting is flipping the mainstream model, which is hierarchical. And I'm the parent, all knowing, and you're the child, and you will conform and follow what I say. It flips the model that we're all learning from each other. And, you're my greatest teacher. So it really turns that model upside down. And you're bringing awareness to every parenting moment but you're bringing the awareness to yourself. You're not focusing on the child per se. There's going to be different behaviors and things going on, but you're always turning the mirror and the point and swiveling it back to you, going, what is that about me? What's coming up inside of me? And this is where your own beliefs and ancestral legacies and all of that starts to rise up to the surface. And it's an unlayering process, and unlayering of all the things that were never yours or not you at all. And your child is your awakener.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because this is a language I think that I also use in my work, is the taking on of other people's stuff. And that's not just your parents and your immediate family, but it can be, I mean, now with the study of epigenetics, we know that it goes back generations, that in fact, the traumas and the experiences that our ancestors had definitely impacts us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Can you more about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we come to the world and we're programmed in our early childhood life. First to 3 years are the critical years, and then obviously 1st to 7 are the main programming years for a child. Now, that's not to say, blame yourself or feel guilty about, oh my gosh, I've programmed my child in a way that, full lack, not good enough, and all this sort of stuff. That's not, it's more of a wake-up call to go, okay, what could I do right now? And you can always become more conscious, and you can always shift in the moment right now. So that's where your power lies. But basically, we're marinated in a lot of conditioning. We come with a blueprint. We're conditioned in a way. Generally, the mainstream way is lack and scarcity and not enough and perfection and all different patterns that can play out in your life. And you'll notice, as a parent, where you go to in your mind, and then how you feel, and then what actions you take. There's a loop going on, and so that is just how it is. We have a inner child that is created in childhood, an ego which is wrapped around the inner child that's protecting us. It's like a protective shell, and we're basically kind of born into the wrong orientation because and this is part of the journey, that we wake up and we realize who we truly are. So we're born into this orientation. We're looking at our answers. We're externally orientated, and we have generational patterning occurring. But that, when you wake up and you come to work, whenever you do, that is the point of where you're leaving that victim mentality, that this happened to me, and we're at the effect of it, like the law of cause and effect. You're becoming the effect of everything, and you take your power back, because we're all powerful and we can empower ourselves. So it's kind of through that dysfunction and that conditioning that we actually can get to the goal of who we are and create the life we desire to live. So you got to go through the kind of shit show, in a way, to get to the other side. It's not like you can go say a mantra every day. I'm not, I am this, I'm this. Because if it's there and you're resisting it, I guarantee you're going to bring it closer to you, and what you resist persists. So it's coming to show up. It's more about accepting, surrendering, and being with the feelings. So a lot of the work I do is really allowing parents to sit with their own feelings, because most of us grew up in a household that didn't allow feelings to be felt, expressed, and go to your room. And that is just the generational patterning of our parents couldn't deal with it. I mean, and it just perpetuated down the pipeline. And now we have a new breed of children awakening the whole planet, and they are different to, you can't, there's plenty, most of the parents I talk to, they have a strong-willed child that will not do as they say, and no punishment, no control mechanism or strategy or tool will work on their child. Right. And that's where the work begins. So yes, you can have a child that conforms, but right now there's a big shift happening, and a new creation. Children are really like, no, I want to change things. This shouldn't be the way. And they're not necessarily consciously aware of this, but a lot of parents are coming like to their knees, like, I don't know what to do anymore. The books tell me this, they say this, none of the tools and strategies they say are working, and I'm at my wit's end. What do I do? And so my work is to really get the parent to know thyself, understand themselves, and let go of the egoic agendas of all the ways we're trying to control, because control is basically another word for fear. We're just scared. We're living in fear. And when we can start to see our child as powerful, and they are creating their life, and yes, they're going to be things at school happening, and yes, they're not going to be invited to the party. When we can see beyond that kind of illusion and be with them through these things and guide them, and not try and avoid the feelings that come up, we are actually setting a great foundation for a really resilient, empowered child.
Wow. There's so many things I want to riff off of with that. But you did say something about generational patterns, and I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. You've actually used the term toxic generational patterns. What exactly is that? Can you give us like an example of what that could be for someone?
Yeah, well, anything that's toxic is it's actually impacting your life. It's negative in a sense. It's not supporting you. It could be a pattern of guilt, feeling bad about anything, like guilt. Everything you do or you don't do with your child, you feel guilty. Or, not being enough, or scarcity model, that even though you have more money and you have more whatever you're desiring, you're still feeling there's not enough. So these are the kind of patterns that we're just bred into. And, you can look down your lineage and maybe see that, your parents, your grandparents, they would say things like money doesn't grow on trees, or, be grateful for what you've got, and finish your plate and eat all your food and don't waste it. And there's people in Africa starving, and, all these conversations that happen, child's creating a belief system. And, the voice in our child's head is generally the voice, the egoic voice of their closest parent or step parent, or whoever they've been around most. So that's going to be the dominant voice in their head. And then we as adults leave the childhood and believe all these voices in our head are really us. And so when you can really distinguish between your truth and who you really are and the noise of the ego, you free yourself. Then the ego, the more you feed something, the more it grows. So often we're feeding it without being aware of we're feeding it. And you'll see it in your parenting journey. When, I teach parents, when you're parenting out of truth and your heart, or when you're parenting out of ego. And, punishments, parenting out of ego, go to your room, I'm taking the iPad away. That's not from your heart, and that's not teaching. No. The child's just thinking about how mean is my parent. They miss the lesson. You want them to feel what naturally nature is allowing them to feel, or wanting them to feel. And when we go and swoop in, they miss the lesson, and just feel, poor me, my mom or my dad so mean, or whatever it might be. So yeah.
Or they just make themselves wrong without really understanding. Like, mom is mad at me and I don't know why. I don't get it. She's punishing me. I'm a bad person. I think this is where
exactly.
I'll use this term, core false beliefs, in my work with people, because, these, especially on a spiritual level, which I definitely want to explore more with you, but that is not our essence. Our essence is not we're bad, we're wrong, we're not enough, but we come to believe those things. And oftentimes we're getting those messages either directly or indirectly from our parents, our caregivers. And I see that if the parent was parented the same way and they were parented by their parent before them in that same way, we're just perpetrating more shame and more of these core false beliefs that don't help anybody get anywhere in life. Is it that kind of beliefs going to stop those kids from being successful, which is not what the parent wants, right?
No, and belief in the word belief is lie. They're not true. They're not the truth of who you are. And when you can start to separate, some of these toxic beliefs, and of course we can have great beliefs that are supportive, like my body is serving me and looks after me, compared to my body is working against me. So there's different, obviously, ways that you can perceive them, but with these beliefs, it can be internalized, and then the child believes that they're not good and not good enough, and then the ego jumps on that and will find all the evidence to support that in life. And the monkey mind, we're training it every day. We're training it, I wake up and I say I'm going to do something, I don't do it. Well, the monkey mind will jump on that. You don't follow through. You are a failure. So when you become aware of the patterns, as a parent that you've grown up with and how they're playing out in life, and it naturally evolves, like, question yourself, like, why do I tell my child that? Or why am I saying that? Where did that come from? And the more you can get curious with it, the more you can come at it with compassion rather than, shaming yourself about it.
Yes. Oh, this is so important. The thing that you were saying about punishment, I want to revisit that because I think this is so key. I don't know where we first got this idea that we needed to punish our children and try to control them. That doesn't work. It doesn't work with animals either, in my experience. No. I don't think it works for anyone. Why do we do that? Like, why do we think that punishing or restricting is somehow going to make a child comply?
Yeah. Well, these are all part of the mainstream parenting model. It's fear and control strategies. So punishment, is not teaching. It's taking away the teaching moment, because when you have a felt experience inside and you've done something maybe that wasn't okay, or you've crossed a boundary, you're going to feel it. Naturally, life will allow you to feel it. You're going to feel it. Your consciousness will allow you to feel it. And when we swoop in and punish, often punishments that parents make aren't even related to what's happened. No. But there are natural occurring consequences that happen and that you can take advantage of, that naturally occur, without you imposing something onto the child. So, I don't punish my children. I don't think I've really ever punished them. And, we work through the challenges, and often I throw it back to them. What do you feel we should do? What do you feel to do? Or I don't force them to say sorry or this. They'll say, oh, I should go and talk to her, or, oh, I should. So it's coming from them. So trying to support your child to work from the inside out. What do you feel is your next best step? Or what do you feel we could do about this problem and that? The more we try and control, the more they shut down. That, it really doesn't connect. Control actually disconnects. Yeah. So if you want to connect with your child and always have an open channel that they can come to you, often with punishment, the child will not want to tell you the truth because they're scared they're going to get punished. So that's the consequence of it. And that's a really big consequence, because you don't want the child to feel like they can't talk to anybody about a big problem they may be having, or something they've done that they need support working through.
We have a term in America, I don't know if you have it there in Australia, called helicopter parent.
Yep, we do.
Okay. So, we have a lot of, and it's so interesting because oftentimes it is the highly successful, parents who've had success in their own lives, they're high achievers, and they often have this helicoptering style where they're just hovering over their kid and, monitoring their every move. And it is very much about control. I mean, that is definitely happening. And their intentions are good, obviously. I mean, they're there for their child. They're trying to keep them from suffering. But I agree with you. I think when we do that, we're depriving the child of learning their own lessons and learning what the natural consequence is. If you stick your hand on the stove, it's going to hurt. If you just tell them that, they aren't going to get it. They may have to go through the experience of getting burned to understand that that's not a safe thing to do. I see sometimes the children of helicopter parents, when they grow up, they kind of don't know how to function in the world because they've never really had to fend for themselves.
Yeah, and they're told what to do and what not to do. And this is where we lose our own inner knowing, our own inner barometer or guidance system. And, the root of control is fear and anxiety. So the fear of being out of control, we go into control because, and in the mix of would be not enough, because so what do you do when you don't feel enough? You've got to overdo. You've got to, go the next level. You go overboard. So this is where parent stops, and that means stopping those kind of behaviors and patterns and looks at what is going on. And then that's dealing with being with anxiety or being with the fear, because there could be a fear that if I don't do this with my child, then be this. That's all future thinking that many parents go down the rabbit holes. And that is where you bring yourself back to the moment. You're only ever here now, and this is the most powerful moment. And also with the control, the child then is not sure of their place in the world and will look to others and get inspired. So when they know what feels right and they know what they feel to do, and you support them in following that, and you kind of like, it's not hands off that there's no boundaries and consequences, but it's more like, let's see what unfolds. Let's allow the child's natural unfoldment. And yes, we may need to go and be hands-on, and then we might need to let go. But the magic is the freedom that the parent receives and the freedom the child receives to just be themselves, to not feel that they have to measure up, not feel that they have to succeed in a certain way. I always like to say, you can't get in the way of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It's going to get there, and we have the societal conditioning and shoulds, or that, let's be aware of a should. It's conditioned of what you should be doing, shouldn't do. We have this thing that we have to make them into something so they get a job and they get successful. Well, a lot of the successful people out there with a lot of money are very unhappy. Why? Because they're not following their truth and they're not doing what they desire to do. And they've gone on a journey and studied medicine or whatever they may have studied. And they're like, hang on, they get to 40 plus and go, I didn't really want to do that. I actually want to go traveling, or I want to. So we have to trust, but that means not just trust your child. First person to trust is yourself, and trust that my child is powerful. They're creating their own destiny, and I do not need to get in the way, and I do not to contour or carve the path out for them. They're going to find it their way, and if that means a messy room for a while, or doing certain things, they're in our household, so we can support them and come up with ideas and creative solutions together. And see it unfolds, where the more we try and control, you actually, it's like, when you're trying to force something, it slips out of your hands.
Yeah.
So the more we lose them in a way, and the more they lose themselves.
Yeah.
So it's bringing it back to the parent, bringing it back to, well, where do I feel out of control in my life? Where, and being with those feelings. Maybe something happened in childhood where something happened and you felt powerlessness.
Right.
being with those feelings means that you can support your child through whatever feelings they're going through, hold the space for them. And then the magic is you're no longer playing out those patterns because you've resolved the emotional legacy. You've been with the emotion, and it's not going to play out. The same pattern with your child won't play out if you drop like the hold of it.
Yes.
There's only one person holding. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're doing a tug of war, right? You drop the rope.
Exactly. I see with my dogs, they're always tug of war, like going on. One of them lets go, or there's no tug of war.
Right. Exactly. There's a few things I want to follow up on with what you said. One is super important, which is when you're not letting your child develop their own inner guidance system, when you're trying to control their, and it's as simple as you mentioned it before, eat everything off your plate. You have to finish your plate because there's children starving and all around the world. And the thing is, that does not honor the child's natural wisdom and knowing, their body's wisdom and knowing. Like, maybe they don't need to eat that much. Maybe they just want, a small portion. Their body doesn't need to over. In fact, I know of a parent who would force the kid to eat, and then the kid would vomit, because it was too much. The mother wasn't listening to signals that the child was done. They were done eating. They know. They have innate wisdom. And I think parents forget children have their own innate wisdom. They're not complete idiots. We don't need to everything, right? They need to figure it out on their own, and they already have a tremendous amount of intuition and knowing. And when we try to control them, they lose the connection with that knowing, and they start to get stupid,
Exactly. Right? Yeah, and then they start to orient with their peer group more so than their own inner knowing, or not speaking up, or and with the food thing, like, one thing I also tell parents is don't get so fixated on what they're not eating in one day. Like, take it over a week. They see what they do, what's their cycle. They might eat in more times, depending, obviously, if there's an issue, you get that as a red flag, you get that checked out. But also it's like, over time, I'm sure many of us parents have experienced this, you're crying, you're upset, and they give you a lollipop or they give you a sweet. It's like associating sweets and sugar with comfort. And then we have, issues with our body image and eating problems. And so the more we allow our child's own innate wisdom to, unfold and watch. So it's a letting go process, and your shit will show up. When you let go and take hands off a little bit and let go and just allow them, not like you let them cut, do a drawing instead of they have to be inside the lines. Like, whoever said, why do you have to be inside the lines? Like, if they want to do a big mess, let them do a big mess. But we have all these ideas and conditions that our child should be doing this or they shouldn't be. And the more you can question that and then let go and allow, the more, you're going to only connect to your own magic, but you're going to allow your child's magic and innate knowing to rise. And that is where they feel empowered, and that's where they feel resilient. And that's all the goodness we want for them, but we're going at it the wrong way, where we're doing what our, ancestors did, which is focusing externally orientated, when we need to go back to our inner orientation and knowing and birth things through that process.
It's funny, as you were talking, it was actually reminding me of school. So I went to Catholic school for 12 years, even though I'm not even Catholic. And I remember in high school, like, they definitely gave you all the dogma and they taught it to you. But I remember in high school having like an ethics class and having classes where they were so much more, their priority was about getting us to think for ourselves, to be young, independent women who would think for themselves. And yes, here's this belief system and here's other perspectives, and let's debate. I mean, we debated things like abortion and euthanasia. You have the right to end your own life if you're in a condition, debilitating condition. We would debate those things, and they weren't trying to push their agenda down our throat. They were like, here's the information. you choose what's true for you.
Yeah.
We're going to help you become critical thinkers so that you can figure out your own path in life. And I thought, wow, that was pretty progressive
That's awesome.
for that school. And it is in the spirit, I think, of what you're saying. And I'm very grateful
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
when you look beyond, like, we live in a duality, we live in a dual world. There's a positive, there's a negative, there's an up, down, in, out, right, wrong. When you go beyond that, and that's a big part of the work as well for parents, to get beyond the lens of right and wrong, good or bad, because, you know, and also what we focus on expands, and what we focus on, we're creating our own experience. And when the parent can see, you know, I often get parents to look at all the things that were good as a child when they were growing up. What was good and what was bad and what was, and, you know, and then look at right now with your child, you know, where are you looking at them in through those lenses? And when you can let go of the good and the bad, you know, there's a big thing about technology. Oh, it's bad, or it's good, or it's, when you can let go and start to show up in your own, through your intuition and your inner knowing, and that, you know, you were chosen to parent your child or your children, and that you're the best person for it, and no expert is going to tell you what is the best thing for your child. You know it. You got to trust that knowing, and then you show up to the moment. You know, yes, you have boundaries, no phones or screens, you know, after 8 or whatever, or in the room, bedroom. There are boundaries, but then you start to dance with it a bit more, instead of having, you know, this rigidity, this black or white, good or bad. And, you know, that's a lot of the work, because we're so stuck in these rigid rules and how things should be. And, you know, like, I have parents, the kids swear. And, you know, the more they don't want them to swear, what happens? The more they swear. And now, you know, they're only doing it at home.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to the parent and, you know, do you have a problem with it? No, not really. I don't. But, you know, their conditioning says it's wrong, and da-da-da-da. And then they let go, and then the child stops doing it. You know, it's like, this is where you start to see the part you play, and the resistance you come to your child, and the resistance they have, that it just becomes a mess. We have so much resistance. So when you come to the child in a new energy and a new lens, or maybe let go of any of lens and really true, you see what opens up. It's a whole new space, and your child will feel it. They're so in touch, and, you know, you don't have to say anything. They know what kind of mood you're in. They know where you're at. They know it, and they're very wise and very in tune. They don't have as much baggage as we do, as much luggage that they're carrying around. They're you know, really present. And then, you know, it totally shifts what they're doing. Yeah. And yes, there's going to be highs and lows and ups and downs, but you don't have to feel the high or the low. You can be more neutral about it and come to the space of like, oh, wow, what is this teaching me? Oh, wow, my child did this. Okay. You know, we're not so reactive. And this is another part with parents. Reactivity is the thing. Yelling is the big thing. We're not reactive. We're coming to the space, and we're open for a possibility, endless possibilities of how could we navigate this. We're not coming with a rigid, I know, you know, of a fixed idea. We're open to what shows up, and God may show you exactly the next step.
You know, I'm reminded as you speak of, you know, when they talk about going with the flow instead of against the current, you know, so I'm picturing a boat, and it seems like so many parents are in this power struggle with their kids, and they're paddling their boat really hard upstream to go against, you know, and control and all the things, where if you just turned your boat around and let the river carry you, and you and your kids each have a paddle, and you're in this like collaborative thing together, which is really to me about what you're saying, is when you collaborate with your child, and we're on the same team here, and we don't know what's around the next bend in the river, but we're going to figure it out together. How much easier that is for the parent and for the child.
Yeah. And it's a great opportunity for the parent to evolve, not only in their parenting life and be the best parent they can be, but in all areas of their life. And, you know, have this deluded kind of, what's it called? Fantasy of parenting that, you know, and then we're like, well, my child yelled at me or my child did this. Yes, they're going to do all this stuff. But we come to think that my child shouldn't yell at me. My child shouldn't tell me I'm the worst parent in the world. But, you know, they're reacting. And so we have this fantasy idea, fantasy child, the one that conforms and follows the rules and stays in the lines, coloring in, and, you know, and then we have, you know, fantasy of what parenting is about. And this is the discrepancy, is that our ideal and what we desiring is not matching our current reality. So, you know, this is often we get into victim, you know, mentality, and then we'll look at other people. I mean, they look at, like, so easy. Look at the pictures on Instagram and look at their child cuddles them and kiss, and we're only getting a snippet of their parenting journey. So it's coming back to reality that we are in this dual world, and there is going to be a lot of stuff. If you're not having problems, then you're not in the world. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be ups and downs, and this is building muscle of resilience. And our child is watching us every step of the way. They may not listen, maybe they're not listening to you, but they are watching every move you're making, and they're learning through who you're being. So this work is really about starting to know, observe and see and know yourself of, how am I being? Right. What am I thinking about? What do I think about my child? Am I having this desire? I wish I had a different child that was more compliant and make my life easier. Like, what is going on underneath the hood? Yeah. And then that's the place to empower you. Yes. But when you do that work, the external shifts, your internal shifts, the external shifts along with you. Yeah. So, and it is not punishing your child, and there'll be many magical moments. You'll be blown away going, oh my God, I just did this one day, or I did the work, and then all of a sudden, you know, your child's doing something that they've never done before, or they're saying something to you and you're like, wow, it's magic. And it is magic.
I'm struck by so much of what you're saying, particularly around the fantasy kind of delusional stuff. You know, I have my own experience where my mother would say to me, you know, I wanted to be a mom from when I was 13 years old. And I think, you know, I was, in her mind, the solution to her problem of maybe loneliness. She had been an only child and whatever. There were a lot of things, traumas and things that happened in her own life. And I think she thought I was going to be her best friend. I was going to be her everything. And I have to say, I was aware of that and I resisted it. It felt needy, it felt clingy, and it made me want to be even more independent and push away from her, which I know hurt her. And it wasn't my intention, but I was reacting to what she was projecting onto me that I didn't want on me.
Exactly. And that's what happens. One really important point is that when you begin the work, you come to realize, and you know, it's kind of like a premise that, you know, you don't meet your needs through your children, and you don't meet your needs through anyone. You meet your needs. Yeah. And that's not to say you can't ask for support and help, but you're no longer trying to meet your need through your child. So if they don't say, I love you, or kiss you, or they actually say, you know, don't want you to kiss them or whatever, that you respect that, and then that brings up something in you, then it's time to look at that, because that's not about you. And knowing that any kind of trigger you're experiencing in your life or as a parent has nothing to do with your child or the external, empowers you to know, where do I need to do the work? Okay, something happened, you know, my child said this and I'm triggered. And the child, it's not about the child. So often, you know, in mainstream parenting, it's what's wrong with the child, the behavior, we need to fix, change, improve it. We need to do something for the child. This work is not about fixing, changing, or proving. It's not about the belief that you're broken and you need fixing, because, you know, if you need to fix something, there's inherent belief that there's something broken. It's really starting to create, you know, a new model, a new way of being, and releasing the past. As I said before, you've got to go through your dysfunction, your stuff patterns, your beliefs to get to the goal, to get to the magic. And this is like alchemy, you know, you've got to alchemize that. You've got to feel some feelings, that because your child will bring you to your knees from past feelings in your childhood. It's not in the current moment what you're feeling. If you feel powerlessness with your child, it's something happened earlier, and they're just giving you the invitation, like, and opening the door, you know, like, so the window or whatever, and you got to open the door and go in. And that's where the magic happens, that you're releasing the child. They're just being a child. They're not going to say everything nice to you.
And it's never about the external, right? I mean, we could apply that to a work situation or a relationship, you know, of some sort. It's never about the other person. It's about what wound have they tapped into? What unhealed wound do I have that's activated right now? It's nothing to do with them. They're acting from their own wounds, you know?
Yes.
About where, and I think people just don't understand that. A lot of what I try to do, especially with the podcast and just putting all the things that I put out there in the world, is around educating people on trauma. People think that the painful or traumatic experiences you have earlier in your life, you should just get over it, move on. It doesn't work like that. Trauma gets locked in the body. It changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way these beliefs often come out of traumatic experiences of I'm not enough, or I'm unlovable, or I'm a bad, broken person. They come from those experiences. And if you're not conscious about it, it's going to keep running you for the rest of your life. You have to go back and do the work to heal.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, if you have an emotional child or a child that's very expressive and gets upset, if you haven't done the work, then you can't sit with their feelings. That's when you want to shut off. That's all right. Don't worry about it. That's not that big. And you dismiss their experience. So, you know, and we're all after like emotionally intelligent children, but we're doing this day to day. Not only my child feel expecting, you know, resilience and emotionally intelligence. And when you bring it back to, okay, I got to sit with my feelings. So that means like when something comes up and you're triggered, it doesn't have to be in the moment, because obviously you've got a parent and you might have to deal with things, but you go back to it. What was that about? You sit with that feeling, you be with it. The more you be with it, it releases, instead of resisting it, going to Netflix, ignoring it, having a wine, ignoring it, trying to suppress it. The more you suppress, gets repressed, and it will come up. It'll keep coming up until, you know, the universe is like, quick, I showed you this. This is an invitation. You didn't get it. Let's see what next invitation, you know, just keeps trying to guide you back home to yourself. So being able to look at your child in a new way and go, wow, my child is my awakener. They're here to grow me up, not I'm to grow them up. They're growing you up. And go, wow, this is an opportunity. It can completely transform your life and your child's trajectory of their life.
I fully agree. This is such valuable information. Nina, if people want to find out more about what you're up to, because I think you have a lot of different offerings. Yeah. Tell us about that and tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, well, I'm on most of the social media channels, Instagram, at Nina Cruz Coach, Facebook, Nina Cruz Conscious Coaching. I've got a group, private Facebook group called Conscious Creators Collective. And then I've got my website, ninacruzconsciouscoaching.com. And I think on Instagram, not Instagram, LinkedIn as well. And then I've got some freebies on my website. You can go to the free offers. There's a 12 days of presence program that you just put your email address in, and you get a small paragraph for 12 days to start to refocus, like start to become present and start to, you know, live in the moment. You know, when we're in the past or in the future, we're not present, and our children are really, you know, asking for us to be present. Like, Mom, are you with me? Mom, be with me here. And the gift we can give to them and ourselves. And on my website, I also have 2 books I've collaborated, or 3 actually, 3 books I've collaborated with other authors and parents. One is in the US, it's called No Problem Parenting. And one is in the other 2 in Australia, Navigating Motherhood and Letters to My Son, which is more of a compilation of advice and letters that parents, grandparents that wish they wanted to share or impart to their children.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a gift. You've been a gift, and
thank you.
And you are a gift to your children. They're very fortunate to have you as
they won't say that all the time. They won't say that.
I'm sure they don't say that all the time. Yeah. Maybe someday we'll appreciate that.
Yeah. That's
any
right.
final thoughts you want to leave us with, or final, message for those who've stuck it out and been with us the whole time for the podcast?
Look, I think, just start to listen to those little inner knowings. So, if you feel called to do some work, you just take some action, and start to follow your own innate knowing. Our children are only with us in their childhood for a really small amount of time. And, most parents will say, oh gosh, it just goes so fast. They're teenagers, or they're 18, they're leaving home, and that is the wake-up call. That is the wake-up call. How do you want to feel or look back on your child's childhood? Do you want to feel that you are present, you are available, you were really showed up for yourself and for them, and we're creating these moments and memories with them right now. So now is the moment, to really create something special.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being with us today. Thank you, listeners and watchers, for being with us as well. If you really have enjoyed this podcast, please do share, like, rate, comment, do all the things so that we can get this information out there in the hands of more people. And stay tuned for our next episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.